I gave everything I had to help Li Jinyan ascend the throne. After he claimed the highest seat of power, he did something completely unexpected. He dismissed the entire imperial harem and kept only me by his side. In front of others, he showered me with affection, to the point where everyone claimed I was a wicked enchantress sent to seduce the emperor. But behind closed doors, he never once touched me. In fact, he preferred to press my head into a basin of icy water in the dead of night, just to watch me struggle in pain. He hated me for stealing the dagger he had given to his beloved as a token of their love, for taking her place and marrying into the Eastern Palace, separating them forever by life and death. He exiled my sworn brother to a barbaric frontier where he died a miserable death on the battlefield. Then he severed his head and sent it back, driving my adoptive mother mad, just so I would understand the agony of losing someone I loved. After I was reborn, I did exactly what he wanted, avoided him completely. What I never expected was that he was reborn too. He cornered me against a wall and shouted, "Why didn't you come find me? Why won't you marry me?" What a joke. Instead of helping that idiot rise again, I might as well drag him down and put someone better on the throne. Era 1. I never imagined I'd be reborn. The moment I opened my eyes, a heavy horsewhip came flying straight at me. Out of instinct born from years of abuse, I curled up on reflex and shut my eyes. The whip cracked down on my shoulder, slicing across my face in the process. A stinging pain shot through me, like hundreds of silver needles piercing my skin all at once. My scalp went numb, and I was hit with a wave of dizziness. Then, after the ringing in my ears faded, I heard a soft, delicate voice behind me. "Father, Mother, please don't hit sister anymore. She didn't mean to push me into the water. It's my fault. I stole her place in this family. If she's angry, I understand." I turned toward the voice, and a dainty figure came into view. There she was, Ji Xiaoye, the imposter who had lived in the Marquis's household for 15 years in my place, crying pitifully as she tugged at the Marquis's sleeve, trying her best to calm things down. Playing the part of the sweet, innocent girl. Humph. So narrow-minded, she's not worthy of being my daughter. Ji Fan spat. If I had known she'd act like this after coming back, I never would have brought her home. As he spoke, my biological mother, Madame Liu, stood beside him, her expression cold and distant. She didn't even attempt to intervene. I was the real daughter of the Marquis's household, switched at birth. Unfortunately, my biological parents had no affection for me. They despised that I carried the Ji family's blood, yet had lived in some remote village for 15 years. To them, the imposter was elegant and poised, graceful inside and out, a perfect noble daughter. But me? I was uncouth and lacking in manners. Even the foot-washing maidservants had more refinement than I did. My existence was a stain on the Ji family name, a constant reminder that they had a daughter unfit for polite society. In my previous life, I had followed them back to the Marquis's estate full of hope, but until the day I died, I never once felt any warmth from them. This time around, I no longer held any expectations. Ji Xiaoye stood to the side, crying like a weeping willow. "Father, don't say things like that. You'll hurt sister's feelings." But Ji Fan wasn't done venting. He raised his whip again, ready to teach me another lesson. "Xiaoye, you're too naive. If she dares push you into the water today, she'll dare take your life tomorrow. How can I let you suffer such injustice? Today I'll beat her to death if I have to." With that, the heavy whip came slashing toward me again. I sneered silently. It was always the same. No matter what Ji Xiaoye said, they believe her. In my past life, she had deliberately fallen into the pond and then accused me in front of everyone. No matter how I tried to explain, they insisted I was lying. All I got in return was, "You hurt someone, and now you're lying about it?" Just like the lawless riffraff raised in the countryside. At some point, simply having grown up in a rural village had become my original sin. As the whip came closer, I reached out and grabbed it with my bare hand. It left a deep bloody welt in my palm, but I had thick skin. I didn't care. Ji Fan was clearly stunned, too shocked to react right away. I took the opportunity to yank the whip from his hand and flung it into the nearby pond. Now that you don't have your whip, how do you plan to beat me to death? Ji Fan trembled with rage, his voice rising in fury. You dare fight back? How could someone like you be born into the Ji family, you ungrateful, unfilial wretch? Get out! Get out of my house! As he shouted, he grabbed a broom from the courtyard, ready to strike. I sneered again and blocked it with my arm. You say you regret bringing me home? Well, I regret it too. Not everyone wants to be your daughter. Ji Fan's face froze, and he stumbled back a few steps, nearly losing his balance. Ji Xiaoye quickly stepped in to support him, acting as the peacemaker. Sister, it's all my fault. If I hadn't told the truth, Father wouldn't have punished you. I deserve to die. I raised an eyebrow and gave her a cold, piercing look. I really wanted to rip that fake kindness off her face. You're right. You do deserve to die. After all, you're the one who's been lying from the very beginning. You fell into that pond yourself. Hearing that, Ji Fan exploded. Still lying, even now? I raised Xiaoye myself. She's nothing like you. She doesn't have a scheming bone in her body. Ji Xiaoye's face went pale. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and her body swayed as if she might collapse. Sister, I didn't know you hated me this much. So much that you'd push me into the water and then blame it all on me? What a natural-born actress. In my past life, I had craved the love of my real parents, tolerated her again and again, only to be taken advantage of repeatedly. But not this time. I took a slow step toward her and said deliberately, "Oh, then tell me, which hand did I use to push you? How exactly did I do it?" Maybe it was the aura of someone who'd once been an empress, but I could see Ji Xiaoye flinch at the question. I think it was your right hand. I smiled faintly, taking another step closer. Is that so? Her eyes darted nervously. She couldn't help but retreat, step by step, until she reached the edge of the pond. Of course. I let out a cold laugh. Well, since you've made it so clear, I'd be letting myself down if I didn't do something about it. And then, in full view of the Ji family, I reached out and pushed her right into the pond. 02. When Ji Xiaoye fell into the pond, the Ji family was thrown into chaos. Taking advantage of the disorder, I slipped back to my room, packed up my valuables, and left through the back gate. The next time I ran into Ji Xiaoye was in front of Jufeng Pavilion, the most luxurious restaurant in the capital. She stepped down from an ornate carriage, surrounded by a group of noble ladies who fluttered around her like butterflies. I intended to avoid her, but to my surprise, she came running toward me with a delighted smile. Sister, so you're here? The whole family's been looking everywhere for you. Just go home and say a few soft words to Father and Mother. I'm sure they'll forgive you. Besides, you were wrong to push me into the pond. They only disciplined you because they care. They're afraid you'll bring that uncivil street rat behavior back into the Ji family and ruin our reputation. How impressive. With just a few words, she'd already put me in the worst possible light. Ji Xiaoye might look gentle and innocent on the outside, but she was the one most desperate to keep me out of the Marquis's estate. She couldn't stand the idea of my biological parents showing me even a hint of affection. She was terrified that I might take everything she thought belonged to her. The noble ladies behind her were quick to jump to her defense. Xiaoye, you're just too kind. You let everything slide. That country bumpkin shoved you into a pond, and you still forgave her? If you ask me, your family should have never let someone like her come back. She's a disgrace. Ji Xiaoye shook her head quickly and even stepped in front of me, as if trying to protect me. Don't blame my sister. She just couldn't stand Father and Mother being good to me. She'll change. Sister, please come home. She tugged on my sleeve, still putting on a show. But I'm no actress, and I had no intention of playing along with her anymore. Are you done talking? Then get lost. This fake sweetness of yours honestly makes me sick. The smile froze on Ji Xiaoye's face. Her clear eyes shimmered with tears. Sister, how can you say that? I'm only doing this for your own good. I folded my arms and gave a light laugh. If you really meant well, then pack your things, leave the Ji family, and give back everything that rightfully belongs to me. If you're not willing, then don't pretend to be selfless in front of me. Ji Xiaoya pressed her lips together tightly, tears streaming unchecked down her face. She looked pitiful, like someone everyone should feel sorry for. Sister, you know it's not that I don't want to leave. It's just that father and mother can't bear to let me go. I let out a laugh. Oh, they can't bear to let you go. Or is it that you're the one desperately clinging to the Ji family? I took a step closer and reached out, gently brushing aside the wind-tousled strands of hair from her forehead, tucking them behind her ear. Then I leaned in and whispered, just loud enough for the two of us to hear. If you don't want all these noble ladies to find out that you have the blood of a whore in your veins, you'd better leave quietly. Don't push me, because someone like me, who has nothing to lose, doesn't fear someone like you. And if you provoke me again, I won't hesitate to drag you down to hell with me. Ji Xiaoya's pupils contracted sharply. Her lips were tightly pressed, eyes now burning with rage. I knew then she was scared. The truth was, Ji Xiaoya's real mother had been a prostitute from one of the city's brothels. Back when Madame Lu was pregnant with me, her morning sickness was terrible. She was irritable and often beat the servants for the smallest things. One of the foot-washing maids held a grudge against her. After Lu gave birth, that maid secretly swapped the babies. She had intended to abandon me at a brothel, letting me grow up in degradation as a lowly courtesan, humiliated and abused. But fate intervened. That brothel madam happened to offend a powerful official in the capital, and overnight, the once bustling brothel was reduced to ashes. Most of the women there either died or fled. I, just an infant wrapped in swaddling cloth, was left at a snowy street corner. Later, my adoptive mother found me and brought me home, raising me as her own. The foot-washing maid who switched us remained in the Ji household for years, until one day she angered Ji Xiaoya by being too slow in her chores. Ji Xiaoya had her executed. But just before her death, the maid revealed the shocking truth, delivering a devastating blow to Ji Xiaoya. She had grown up pampered and adored, the pride of the family. How could she possibly accept the fact that she carried the blood of a courtesan? Not only could she not bear it, none of the high-ranking families in the capital would, either. If word ever got out that Ji Xiaoya's birth mother had been a prostitute, her reputation in the capital would be utterly destroyed. I turned and walked away. A few of the noble ladies tried to block my path, but Ji Xiaoya quickly stopped them. If sister has chosen her own path, then let her be. As long as she's happy, that's all that matters. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Even now, she was still trying to maintain her image of gentle kindness. Wasn't she tired of it? But she was right about one thing. This time around, I truly did have a path of my own to follow. 03. In my past life, Ji Xiaoya did everything imaginable to keep her place in the Ji family and sabotage me, the real daughter who had just returned. She would cut up her own newly bought dresses and blame me for it, or hide her favorite hairpin in my cabinet and then burst into tears, accusing me of theft while playing the victim. And unfortunately, my biological parents trusted her implicitly. No matter what happened, I was always the one being scolded and beaten. Thanks to her schemes, my days in the Marquis's estate were nothing short of hell. But even with her deceitful and manipulative nature, Ji Xiaoya was still Li Jinyan's one true love, his untouchable goddess. The only reason I ended up marrying the crown prince in my past life was because I stole Ji Xiaoya's identity. I knew that, as a child, Ji Xiaoya had once saved Li Jinyan's life. His mother died young, and he had grown up without protection in the imperial harem, constantly walking on eggshells. One year during the Lantern Festival, he snuck out of the palace to visit a temple fair. On his way back, he was ambushed and nearly killed, but it was Ji Xiaoya who saved him. Li Jinyan fell for her at first sight. He gave her his personal dagger and promised that one day he would come looking for her. 10 years later, he kept his promise and left the palace to find her. He could no longer clearly remember her face or voice. The dagger was the only proof they had ever met. When I found out, I stole the dagger and assumed Ji Xiaoya's identity to meet Li Jinyan. Back then, Ji Xiaoya hadn't told him her full name. Afraid of getting into trouble, she only said her surname was Ji. That gave me the perfect opportunity. To be honest, I never intended to do something so shameful. After all, my adoptive mother, though uneducated, had always raised me to be kind and honest. But I hated Ji Xiaoya. She constantly made my life in the Ji family miserable and even shattered the hairpin my adoptive mother gave me. That hairpin was a gift for my coming-of-age ceremony. It was plain, but my mother had worked for half a year to save up enough coins to buy it. I remember how, after selling goods during the day, she would sit under the dim kerosene lamp and embroider late into the night. Each embroidered piece earned her just a single coin. That hairpin wasn't expensive, but it cost her half a year of labor. On the day of my ceremony, she carefully placed it in my hair and told me it would bring me good fortune. But that good fortune was shattered by Ji Xiaoya. She knew how much I loved that hairpin, so she ordered her maid to pin me down and yank it from my hair. After one glance, she threw it to the ground in disgust. So tacky. I thought it might be something nice, but of course, a country girl like you would treasure this kind of junk. The hairpin snapped in half. Seeing my tears, she only grew more excited and tossed it into the lotus pond. You love it so much? Then why don't you go fish it out? She destroyed the thing I loved most. So when I learned that the dagger was her most treasured item, I didn't hesitate to steal it. At first, I planned to destroy it, but I soon found out that it was a personal item of the crown prince. And so, to stop being bullied and to get revenge on Ji Xiaoya, I chose to take her place. After recognizing me as a savior, Li Jinyan hurried back to the palace to request a marriage decree. At that time, Ji Xiaoya still had no idea that the boy she once saved had become the crown prince. By the time she found out the truth, I had already been married into the Eastern Palace for 2 weeks. How could Ji Xiaoya possibly stand to see me take credit for what she had done, to live a life better than hers? After one royal banquet, she faked a suicide attempt by hanging herself. When rescued, she wept pitifully and reluctantly, exposed how I had stolen her identity. Just like that, I became the ultimate scheming villain. Li Jinyan wanted to divorce me, but at the time, the Empress Dowager had taken a liking to me. She held true power during that period of intense struggle for the throne, while the emperor himself was weak and indecisive. Winning her favor meant getting one step closer to ruling the empire. Li Jinyan hated me but couldn't bear to give up such a useful chess piece. To be with Ji Xiaoya, he came up with the idea of making her his concubine. But Ji Xiaoya had always been proud and ambitious. How could she accept being beneath me? I may be only a foster daughter of the Marquis's household, but I have my dignity. I will never be a concubine. I love you with all my heart, so I can't bear to see you with someone else. I want us to spend our lives together, just the two of us. They argued over the marriage, and in a fit of anger, Ji Xiaoya left the capital. She left Li Jinyan a letter saying she was going away to clear her mind. But on her journey to the northern frontier, she caught a deadly illness and died suddenly. Li Jinyan blamed everything on me. If you hadn't taken Xiaoya's place, I would have married her. She wouldn't have died. This is all your fault. You killed her. But I knew very well her death had nothing to do with me. It was the result of her own greed and ambition. Ji Xiaoya could never stand being beneath me. Once she realized that I couldn't be divorced so easily, she set her sights on the visiting northern prince. She knew that staying with Li Jinyan wouldn't make her an empress, so she began to cozy up to the prince instead. When the northern prince returned to his homeland, she followed him without hesitation. She believed that, with her talents, she could become the prince's consort and eventually the queen of the northern kingdom. But she didn't know the prince was already engaged to the daughter of the great general who commanded 3 armies. She was manipulated and ultimately killed by that noblewoman. If she hadn't been so greedy, would she have ended up that way? After Ji Xiaoya's death, Li Jinyan's hatred for me deepened to the marrow of his bones. Once he claimed the throne, He again did something unexpected, dismissed the entire harem and kept only me. In public, he showed me overwhelming affection. Everyone said I was a wicked fox spirit sent to charm the emperor. But behind closed doors, he never touched me. He would even force my head into icy water in the dead of night just to watch me suffer. Do you know what my biggest regret in life is? My biggest regret is meeting you. You absolutely disgust me. He exiled my sworn brother to the harsh frontier, where he died a gruesome death in battle. He had his head severed and sent back, driving my adoptive mother insane, all just to make me feel the agony of losing the people I loved. Because of what he did to them, my relationship with Li Jinyan fell to its lowest point. That rift was noticed by a neighboring commander who used it to his advantage. He exploited the discord between us to launch multiple schemes and quickly invaded the border. Because we couldn't fight as one, the enemy broke through easily, and countless lives were lost. Later, both Li Jinyan and I were captured. We died tragically at the hands of the enemy. I have no intention of falling into the same pit twice. So this time, I've chosen never to cross paths with him again. 04. I decided to start over. In this vast capital, I wanted to gain a foothold on my own, so I could give my adoptive mother and sworn brother a better life through my own efforts. Having once been the empress, I knew full well the truth of a saying: money makes the world go round. In fact, from the moment I left the Ji family, I had been staking out the area around Jufeng Pavilion. I was waiting for someone. In my previous life, as the crown princess, even though Li Jinyan and I were locked in a deadly power struggle behind the scenes, on the surface, we were allies in the same boat. His success was my success. His downfall, mine too. I had done a lot to help him ascend the throne. Helping the crown prince's household earn money was part of that. And the person I was waiting for was none other than Wang Jinkai, the business steward who managed the crown prince's enterprises in my last life. He was a short man, but clever and extremely gifted in business. He brought in a great deal of silver for the prince's household and was one of my most reliable right-hand men when it came to commerce. When I met him in my past life, he had already built up several successful shops on his own. But I knew that at this point in time, he was still just an inconspicuous waiter at Jufeng Pavilion. Now that I had another chance at life, I still wanted to recruit him. But after watching the restaurant for days, I hadn't seen a trace of him. I didn't find the person I was waiting for, but I did run into Ji Xiaoya. As expected, a stroke of bad luck. Fortunately, Ji Xiaoya seemed genuinely afraid I might expose her true background. She didn't dare cling to me any further. Under the disdainful gazes of the noble ladies, I left. I was just about to return to the inn for some rest when I spotted Wang Jinkai strolling slowly from a street corner, carrying a small bundle over his shoulder. So I had been waiting here all this time, and this man had just taken time off work. Seeing that he was heading in for his shift, I hurried over and pulled him into a side alley. Wang Jinkai, I've got a business deal I want to discuss with you. Are you in or not? The short man frowned, visibly wary, and looked me up and down with his big, round eyes. Miss, I'm doing fine at Jufeng Pavilion. It's tiring, sure, but at least it's stable. Why would I go into business? There's too much risk in business these days. No, thanks. Not interested. I crossed my arms, frowning slightly as I stared at him. How could the money-hungry Wang Jinkai from my past life be this content with comfort and routine now? How could I convince him? After a moment of silence, I recalled something he had once told me in my previous life. He had been forced into doing business. The owner of Jufeng Pavilion was a notoriously stingy old miser, always calculating every coin. Wang Jinkai had toiled away at the restaurant for 6 long months, but when it came time for payday, the boss claimed his small stature made him less productive and withheld nearly 4 months of his wages. Wang Jinkai's son suffered from severe asthma, and that money had been set aside for his treatment. But the boss's cruelty erased any hope of saving the boy. Desperate to save his son's life, Wang Jinkai had no choice but to start his own business. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but ask, "How long have you been working at Jufeng Pavilion?" He did some mental math on his fingers. All told, it's been about half a year now. I understood instantly. I nodded at the bundle on his shoulder. You took time off. Was it to visit your son? Wang Jinkai looked startled, nodding repeatedly. Yeah. How did you know? I came back to collect my wages. My boy's illness can't wait any longer. I patted him on the shoulder with a smile and continued my well-rehearsed pitch. Because I'm from your hometown. Everyone back there knows about your son's condition. I chatted with him a bit longer, then added, I heard the boss at Jifeng Pavilion is especially tight-fisted. He's known to dock wages. If he cheats you out of your pay, don't panic. Come find me, and we'll figure something out together. I'm staying at the inn just across the street. Wang Jinkai nodded. He was gone for less than half a day before returning, face bruised and battered, pounding on my door. Please, hometown friend, you've got to help me. 05. When I left the Ji family, I took with me a few gold hairpins that Madame Liu had prepared for me. After learning that the owner of Jifeng Pavilion really had docked Wang Jinkai's wages, I sold one of the hairpins and took his son to see a doctor. Wang Jinkai was moved to tears. When he looked at me, it was as if he were looking at a second parent. Miss Nanji, you're the savior of the Wang family. From now on, I, Wang Jinkai, will follow your every order. For your sake, I'd go through fire and water without hesitation. I quickly helped him up. No need to risk your life. I just have a business deal I'd like to discuss with you. From what I remembered, the current emperor was obsessed with alchemy, and all the old officials, in order to win his favor, followed suit. During his reign, the price of cinnabar, a key ingredient in alchemical pills, remained consistently high and would, in a few years, become a rare commodity in short supply. So, I persuaded Wang Jinkai to head to Shitong Mountain, where cinnabar mines were located, to scout for ore. Wang Jinkai didn't understand why I was so insistent, but out of gratitude, he agreed without question. I pawned everything valuable I had, gave him most of the money to fund the trip, and told him to secretly buy up the cinnabar mine once he found one. Then, I had him find a few skilled metalworkers to help purify the ore, removing its impurities. To motivate him to give it his best, I signed a contract with him, a 70-30 profit split in his favor. There were very few suppliers of high-purity cinnabar on the market, so the first batch Wang Jinkai produced sold out almost immediately. That was our first pot of gold. Wang Jinkai turned out to be quite savvy. Instead of pouring all the money into the cinnabar mine, he used a portion of the profits to buy several storefronts in the busiest areas of the capital. He started businesses selling ready-made clothes, cosmetics, and jewelry. In his own words, women's money is the easiest to earn. I didn't care what he sold as long as I got my share of the profits. With Wang Jinkai as my business partner, my wealth kept growing. For 6 straight months, I was either making money or spending it. While the Ji family still believed I was just a backwater girl who'd be stranded in the capital without their protection, I had already earned enough to buy a 3-courtyard residence in the southern part of the city. I wrote a letter home to Jiangnan, asking my adoptive mother and sworn brother to start preparing to move. Once I had sorted out the shops in the capital, I would rush back to bring them here to enjoy a good life. Everything was moving along in perfect order, until one day, I ran into Ji Xiaoya in my own jewelry shop. In this life, without me to stop her, Ji Xiaoya had successfully gotten together with Li Jinnian. Just like before, after recognizing her, Li Jinnian had gone straight to the palace and requested an imperial decree of marriage. Now, Ji Xiaoya was officially the crown princess-to-be. I'd heard the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet was approaching, and that Li Jinnian planned to bring Ji Xiaoya into the palace for the celebration. That's why she had come to the shop today, looking for a hairpin to go with her outfit. That should have been a happy occasion. But as luck would have it, the hairpin she wanted had already been reserved by Madame Bai, the wife of the Prime Minister. Ji Xiaoya tried to pressure Madame Bai into giving up the piece. Unfortunately for her, Madame Bai wasn't someone to be bullied. The two of them ended up in a full-blown shouting match in the middle of the store. I saw Ji Xiaoya standing with her hands on her hips, pointing at Madame Bai and shouting, "Do you even know who I am? I'm the future crown princess. His Majesty personally issued the decree for our marriage. So, what if you're the Prime Minister's wife? You're just a lapdog of the royal family. This hairpin, you're giving it to me whether you want to or not. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Ji Xiaoya truly was a fool. She was now firmly positioned as the crown princess and on the same side as Li Jinyan, yet she still didn't know how to conduct herself. Although Li Jinyan held some real power in court, the emperor was now gravely ill, and the battle for the throne was intensifying. The princes were doing everything they could to win over powerful allies. The current prime minister held enormous sway. In my past life, I had worked tirelessly to win over Madame Bai on Li Jinyan's behalf, sending countless gifts to her residence. The prime minister was infamous for being henpecked. And now, Ji Xiaoya had managed to infuriate Madame Bai over a single hairpin. How exactly did she plan to clean up that mess? The argument escalated quickly. A large crowd had gathered to watch the commotion, and the noise was already affecting business. To end things quickly, I stepped forward through the crowd. I'm the owner here. Let me say a few words. This hairpin was reserved in advance by Madame Bai. Naturally, it goes to her first. Ji Xiaoya's expression darkened the moment she heard my voice. Sister, I didn't expect that after half a year, you'd actually gone into business. But then again, someone like you, coming from a poor, rural village, was never fit to be a noble lady. These street-level jobs suit you much better. Now that she was the crown princess-to-be, Ji Xiaoya's tone was even more arrogant than before. I ignored her sarcasm and focused on calming Madame Bai down. Only after Madame Bai's anger had subsided did I turn to Ji Xiaoya. Ji Xiaoya, no matter what your status is, you still need to respect the rules of first come, first served. Give me the hairpin. I held out my hand, but Ji Xiaoya only clutched it tighter. Sister, I'd advise you not to get on my bad side. I'm going to be the crown princess, and eventually the empress of this nation. You'll be under my heel for the rest of your life. I pulled my hand back and chuckled softly. I don't care whose foot I'm under. What I do care about is that if you want to take this hairpin by force, how much silver are you planning to pay me for it? I casually picked up my abacus and began tapping away. This piece was custom-made. You'll need to pay for the customization fee, the craftsmanship, and the damages caused to Madame Bai. Then I named a price. If you like this hairpin so much, then bring out 300 taels of silver. If you can pay that, it's yours. The moment she heard the price, Ji Xiaoya's face turned pale. 300 taels could buy dozens of hairpins. Anyone with sense would have used this as an excuse to back down and return the hairpin to Madame Bai. But not Ji Xiaoya. She gritted her teeth, stuck the hairpin into her hair, and asked her maid if it looked good. Even though it clearly didn't suit her, the maid flattered her non-stop. Ji Xiaoya looked pleased. She curled her lips into a smile and pulled out a stack of silver notes from her sleeve. I'm the future crown princess. Did you really think 300 taels would scare me off? In the end, she paid more than 10 times the hairpin's actual value. As soon as Ji Xiaoya left, I rushed to find Wang Jinkai, holding that stack of silver notes. We hit the jackpot. A walking gold mine just handed us a fortune today. 06. Aside from managing our shops in the capital, Wang Jinkai would occasionally travel back to Shitong Mountain to supervise the cinnabar mining. One day, he rushed in from outside, covered in dust and travel-worn, and reported to me excitedly. Miss Nanji, we've discovered a cinnabar vein, an entire mountain full of it. This time, we're really going to strike it rich. My heart trembled, a tidal wave of excitement surging through me. In my previous life, Wang Jinkai and I discovered the cinnabar vein 3 years after I married Li Jinyan. But by then, Li Jinyan and I were tied together like grasshoppers on the same string. In order to help him seize the throne, all the money I made from selling cinnabar ended up in his hands. Now this windfall of fortune was finally mine to keep. I couldn't be happier. Along with the good news, Wang Jinkai also brought a major issue. The cinnabar deposit is massive, but it's tricky to extract. We'll need someone with serious mining experience. But we don't have anyone like that on hand. I waved my hand at him and smiled. No, we do. Because I did know someone. If I remembered correctly, the mining expert who helped lead Jin Mian in my past life, Wu Bingshan, should still be living in seclusion deep in the mountains with his family at this time. Wu Bingshan was originally from Huaibei, where mining was the local trade. But when he turned 30, he fell seriously ill with a strange condition that left his face disfigured, horribly scarred and frightening to look at. Even though he was the most skilled miner in his village, his appearance brought him endless trouble. The villagers believed he had offended the mountain spirits and was cursed. Some even treated him like a monster. His family suffered greatly. To escape the discrimination, they moved into the remote mountains and survived by hunting and foraging. In my past life, when Li Jin Mian learned I had secured a cinnabar vein, he was desperate to find someone capable of mining it. It was a critical stage in his battle for the throne, and he needed vast sums of silver to buy loyalty. Eventually, he tracked down Wu Bingshan and his family, then used his child's life to coerce him into mining for him. But in this life, I would be the one to find Wu Bingshan first. Wang Jinkai and I searched through the forests for 10 days before we finally found him. Later, I hired a skilled physician to treat his condition and heal the sores on his face. I moved his family to the city, rented them a house, and gave them a new life. Wu Bingshan was deeply grateful. He immediately signed a contract of indenture, promising to work exclusively for me from then on. With Wu Bingshan on our team, mining the cinnabar vein went incredibly smoothly. While things were progressing well on my end, Ji Xiaoye was suffering a huge setback. I heard that she wore the hairpin she had bought to the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. But the ornament was so extravagant, it outshone the Dowager herself. The Empress Dowager was displeased, and before the banquet even ended, she had Ji Xiaoye sent home to transcribe Buddhist scriptures as punishment for inappropriate dress. In an attempt to defend her, Li Jin Mian lost his composure and publicly contradicted the Empress Dowager. Furious, she pressured the emperor, who, in an effort to smooth things over, stripped Li Jin Mian of his command over the imperial guards. When I heard this, I couldn't help but sigh. Without me, Li Jin Mian truly was drifting further from the throne. In my past life, when Li Jin Mian took me to the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, I had made sure to learn about her preferences in advance. Knowing she was devoutly Buddhist, I dressed in simple, modest clothing. Among all the richly dressed nobles, my understated look made me stand out in the best way. The Empress Dowager took note of me and, during our conversation, learned who my adoptive mother was. That only made her favor me more. It turned out that my humble and honest adoptive mother had once saved the Empress Dowager's life. Years ago, during a struggle for the throne, the emperor-to-be had been pursued by assassins in Jiangnan. The Dowager had fled with the wounded crown prince, and in their moment of desperation, it was my mother who saved them. Because of that connection, the Empress Dowager treated me with exceptional care, and by extension, supported Li Jin Mian's rise. The day after the banquet, she personally ordered that Li Jin Mian take command of the capital guard. That was how he stood out in the succession battle and secured his place in the imperial court. But in this life, without me, he failed to win the Empress Dowager's favor. And honestly, that had nothing to do with me anymore. The only thing I cared about now was how much silver my cinnabar mine would make me. 07. With Wu Bingshan's help, the cinnabar mine was being developed smoothly. Later, Wang Jinkai and I made a trip to Shitong Mountain. After roughly estimating the output, we realized the mine we'd acquired produced enough cinnabar to ensure I could live in comfort and wealth for the rest of my life. Our cinnabar business kept expanding, so much so that even the emperor caught wind of it. Obsessed with alchemy, the emperor was so desperate for cinnabar that he was willing to empty half the national treasury to purchase half of my mine. I was summoned to the palace and became an honored guest of the emperor himself. Relying on memories from my previous life, I knew cinnabar would gradually lose value over time, so I didn't hesitate to sell half the mine to him. As I was preparing to leave the palace, Leading a cart loaded with gold bars, I unexpectedly ran into the Empress Dowager and Ji Xiaoya. By now, Ji Xiaoya was officially the crown princess. But rumor had it that things weren't going so well between her and Li Jinyan. They quarreled often, and the reason? Ji Xiaoya had been making things difficult for Madame Bai, the wife of the prime minister. In my past life, with my help, Li Jinyan had long allied with the prime minister. But in this life, Ji Xiaoya had gotten into a petty feud with Madame Bai over a hairpin and later continued to make trouble for her under various pretenses. The prime minister, though a high-ranking official, was famously henpecked. Thanks to Ji Xiaoya's antics, the prime minister switched allegiance to another prince. Without the prime minister's backing, Li Jinyan was now treading on thin ice in court. To help Li Jinyan regain favor, Ji Xiaoya had been running in and out of the palace frequently, trying to get on the Empress Dowager's good side. I had no intention of running into either of them, but Ji Xiaoya strutted toward me like a peacock, all pride and arrogance. Well, isn't this my dear sister?" she said smugly. "What are you doing in the palace?" Seeing that avoiding her was impossible, I walked forward and respectfully saluted the Empress Dowager. "His Majesty summoned me," I said calmly. "The Emperor is purchasing half of my cinnabar mine." At that, Ji Xiaoya rolled her eyes at me. "You're even doing business in the palace now? You reek of money. It's downright vulgar." "What's so bad about the smell of money? Personally, I quite like it." I glanced back at the cart of gold bars behind me and was just about to fire back when the Empress Dowager suddenly spoke. "So, you're the famous Miss Nanji everyone in the capital is talking about? There are very few women in this world who live as boldly and freely as you do. As for smelling like money, I see nothing wrong with it. People rush through life chasing after scraps of silver, and yet those few scraps can calm the panic of the world." She then turned to Ji Xiaoya, her expression slightly chilled. "You're the crown princess now. You should care for the people's well-being. How can your vision be so shallow?" Ji Xiaoya's face turned pale under the scolding. I looked up at the Empress Dowager, and she smiled at me. That familiar smile left me momentarily dazed. In my previous life, she had been the only one in the entire capital who truly treated me well. Now, seeing her again in this life stirred a bittersweet ache in my heart. I bowed again, silently conveying my gratitude. As I did, my sleeve slipped slightly, revealing the pouch tied at my waist. It was handmade by my adoptive mother. In my last life, it was this very pouch that had caught the Empress Dowager's eye and led her to ask about my background. Sure enough, just as she was about to leave, she paused when she saw the pouch. Her eyes sharpened. "Who gave you that pouch?" Just like before, I briefly explained my adoptive mother's background. The Empress Dowager grew visibly emotional as she questioned me further. You're the daughter of my savior? What an incredible coincidence. Heaven must have fated us to meet again." Unable to contain her excitement, she took my hand and insisted on bringing me to her chambers to talk. Ji Xiaoya, anxious not to be left out, hurried after us. "Grandmother, let me come with you to your quarters." But the Empress Dowager refused her on the spot. "I think the crown princess still has much to learn in terms of virtue and conduct. Best you stay home for a few days and copy some Buddhist scriptures." I chatted with the Empress Dowager until the sun began to set. As I was preparing to leave, she reminded me warmly to visit her often. I nodded and promised I would. Just as I stepped out of the palace gates, Ji Xiaoya blocked my path. "TCH, what are you so proud of? You're just a lowly merchant, uncultured and tasteless. Was I wrong to say you reek of money?" I raised an eyebrow and curled my lips into a smirk. I'd rather reek of money than be a crown princess who has to pinch pennies. I reached out and picked up the decorative clasp on her chest, inspecting it with obvious disdain before letting it go. "Really now? For a crown princess, you look downright shabby. Does the crown prince's estate have no money? Why are you still wearing a beeswax clasp in this day and age? If you're broke, you can always ask me for help, though I can't promise I'll say yes." Ji Xiaoya clenched her fists, her eyes blazing with fury. "I'm not broke. I'm the crown princess now, soon to be empress. Once Li Jinyan ascends the throne, all the wealth in the world will be mine. I nearly laughed out loud at her desperation. As if I didn't know the financial state of the crown prince's household. In our past life, I had managed all of their business affairs, before and after I married in. And the truth? The crown prince's household had always been losing money. Li Jinyan only made it to the throne because of the fortune I brought in through the cinnabar mine. But I had no intention of exposing her lie. Now that I had money, Ji Xiaoya just felt irrelevant. As I turned to leave, she suddenly blocked my path again. Sister, so, what if you're rich now? In the future, you'll still have to watch your tone around me. The moment Li Jinyan becomes emperor, the first thing I'll do is make sure you're run out of this city. I chuckled and was just about to fire back when I caught sight of a familiar figure standing in the shadow of the palace walls. Li Jinyan stood frozen, his robes fluttering slightly in the wind, eyes locked on Ji Xiaoya and me, his expression unreadable. This was the first time I'd seen him since my rebirth. Just as he had wished, we were now strangers. I turned to Ji Xiaoya and gave her a bright, pointed smile. Your pure and virtuous image seems to be cracking, doesn't it? Ji Xiaoya's face turned stark white. She immediately ran toward Li Jinyan, probably to explain what she had just said. But he brushed her hand aside and walked straight toward me. Ji Nanji. He stared at me in silence, his gaze filled with emotion too complex to decipher. A chill ran down my spine. My heart skipped a beat. Logically, he shouldn't recognize me at this point in time. There was only one explanation for that look in his eyes, and the way he had called my name so clearly. Li Jinyan had been reborn too. 08. Your Highness, the Crown Prince. I quickly composed myself. Even if he had been reborn, I had done exactly what he wanted in this life. Stayed away, never taken Ji Xiaoya's place. So, he shouldn't have any grievance with me. So I bowed respectfully and addressed him with polite distance. But to my surprise, the man before me suddenly grew misty-eyed. Do you really have to treat me like a stranger? Ji Xiaoya furrowed her brows, watching us both with growing suspicion. Li Jinyan didn't seem to care. He reached out as if to grab my wrist, but I swiftly dodged him. Your Highness, I'm just a humble commoner from the countryside. It's only proper for me to bow in the presence of nobility. I still have matters to attend to, so I won't trouble either of you any further. With that, I turned and left. I had no intention of getting entangled with Li Jinyan ever again. But he clearly didn't feel the same. Barely 2 days later, I saw him again at a banquet hosted by the emperor in my honor. Li Jinyan and Ji Xiaoya arrived just as I was presenting a gift to the Empress Dowager. When Ji Xiaoya saw I had given the Empress Dowager flower tea from Jiangnan, she couldn't help but sneer. Sister, with all that wealth of yours, is this really the best you can offer? Don't tell me you're too stingy to spend money on Her Majesty. What she didn't know was that, having served the Empress Dowager closely in my past life, I knew her preferences like the back of my hand. She and the former emperor had once risen to power in Jiangnan, and ever since, she'd cherished all things from that region. Among them, flower tea was her absolute favorite. Upon hearing Ji Xiaoya's remark, the Empress Dowager shot her a cold look. I don't think it's cheap. Whatever Nanji gifts me, I like. Ji Xiaoya's lips quivered, and she looked pitifully at Li Jinyan, clearly hoping he would defend her. But he didn't even glance at her. His gaze remained fixed on me, and when he sat down, he chose the seat right beside mine. Doing my best not to make a scene, I forced myself to smile as I conversed with the emperor. He asked me many questions about business, and I answered them all thoroughly. I could feel Li Jinyan's eyes on me the entire time. So intense, they felt like they were burning a hole through me. The emperor seemed pleased with my responses and suddenly said, "You're intelligent and clear-headed, truly delightful. Tell me, are you married?" At that moment, warning bells went off in my mind. I was still weighing how to answer when he added, "If not, what do you think of the crown prince?" My hands clenched tightly around the fabric of my skirt. I struggled to keep my expression composed, and after a long pause, I finally smiled faintly and replied, "Your Majesty, I am already engaged." Crack. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Li Jinyan crush the wine cup in his hand. Shards of porcelain sliced into his palm, and wine mixed with blood, soaking into his sleeve. I gritted my teeth and forced myself to finish the banquet. As I was leaving the palace, I was suddenly dragged into a corner. Li Jinyan grabbed my shoulders like a madman, pulling me into his arms, his voice thick with emotion. "Nanji, why didn't you come find me? Why won't you marry me? Who are you planning to marry?" His voice was hoarse, and for a moment, I felt a sharp twinge of something like pain. But I couldn't let myself fall into the same trap again. Given a second chance, why would I ever choose to stay by his side? "No matter who I marry, it will never be you. Li Jinyan, let's forget everything from our last life. From now on, we are nothing but strangers." They said that after that night, Li Jinyan returned to the crown prince's residence in a fit of rage and ordered several handmaidens to be beaten to death. 09. Just 2 days after I rejected him, Li Jinyan came looking for me again. Only this time, he was dead drunk. The moment he saw me, he stumbled toward me, muttering nonstop, "Nanji, I miss you. Nanji, without you, I have nothing." I shoved his heavy, drunken body away from me and sneered coldly, "Nothing. You got what you wanted, Ji Xiaoya, the woman you loved. Isn't that what you always dreamed of?" Clutching a wine jug, Li Jinyan slumped to the ground, laughing and crying all at once. "I used to think she was perfect. But after we married, she spends money like water and never once tried to budget like you did. You know the crown prince's household has no money. I asked her to be more frugal, and she asked me whether I loved her more or loved money more. She's reckless and brainless. She ruined my plans with the prime minister and made me lose the Empress Dowager's trust. Nanji, only now do I realize you're the kind of woman I truly need. Will you come back to me?" I grabbed the front of his robes and flung him out the door. "Don't disgust me. This life, the next, and the one after that will never be possible again." Bang! I slammed the door shut. Outside, I heard Li Jinyan laugh bitterly. "Nanji, you'll say yes. I'll make sure you say yes."
10.
In order to force me to submit, Li Jinyan had my adoptive mother and sworn brother captured. He placed them under house arrest in the Eastern Palace and used their lives to threaten me. "Nanji, as long as you're with me, they won't have to die. We've both been reborn. You know I'm destined to become emperor. What other choice do you have but to be with me?" He imprisoned me, my adoptive mother, and my sworn brother in his private residence. He said that once preparations were complete, he would marry me. Even though I had shops and silver notes, in a world where imperial power reigned supreme, I still couldn't resist him. He was the crown prince. If he truly wanted to entangle himself with me, there was no easy way for me to escape. Just as I was racking my brain for a way to protect my family, the Empress Dowager arrived with her most trusted aides and broke down the door of the residence. Only later did I learn that she had grown uneasy when I didn't show up for our usual chess games at the palace over the past 2 days. So she ordered an investigation into my whereabouts. Upon discovering I had been placed under house arrest by Li Jinyan, she threatened him using his embezzlement of disaster relief funds, and only then did he agree to release us. After the Empress Dowager rescued me, Li Jinyan only became more determined to make me his. Realizing that captivity wouldn't work, he came up with an even worse idea. Within 3 months of my rescue, one by one, the eligible princes in the palace either died mysteriously, were seriously injured, suddenly renounced the world and became monks, or were exposed for corruption, assault, and thrown into prison. I knew this was all Li Jinyan's doing. He wanted to ascend the throne as quickly as possible, because once he became emperor, the Empress Dowager could no longer use his crimes against him. To stop him, I waited for an opening. While his attention was elsewhere, I gathered all my assets and entered the palace to seek an audience with the Empress Dowager. In my memory, she was both wise and capable, more suited to rule the nation than any of the princes. In my past life, when we were drinking together beneath the peach blossoms, she had once let slip a hint of regret. Born a woman, yet cursed with an emperor's ambition. I had known then that if she ever wanted the throne, she had the ability to seize and hold it with ease. But she hesitated, not because she lacked the courage, but because she was a woman. No woman had ever sat on the imperial throne. She was a woman of immense talent, yet in the end, her grand ambitions were stifled, and she died at Li Jinyan's hand out of his paranoia. In this life, she shouldn't have to suffer the same fate. I met with her while Li Jinyan was distracted. Ever since the banquet the emperor held for me, she had known I was the adoptive daughter of the woman who once saved her life and had been especially kind to me since. To make it easier for me to visit, she had even given me a token that allowed me free passage into her chambers. That day, I presented her with several million taels of gold. Your Majesty, I believe it's time women took their place in this world too. The emperor is gravely ill, and the princes are turning on one another. Rather than entrust the fate of the people to someone unstable, why not seize the chance ourselves? Your Majesty, it's time. Let's rebel. Empress Dowager Qin Wan sat high on the platform, her gaze icy as she looked at the gold behind me. Nanji, do you even know what you're saying? A woman on the throne? Unheard of.
Impossible.
How could I do such a thing? I lifted my chin, my voice firm and unwavering. Your Majesty, I was born to live for myself, not to be trapped by others. If such a legacy doesn't exist, then we'll create one. So what if we were women? We were meant to be mountains, not streams. We were born to stand atop the peaks and look down on the mediocrity below. We were destined to be extraordinary, not insignificant. We stand tall in our own light, and one day, we will shine with brilliance. That day, the Empress Dowager kept me in her quarters. She told me she had been having a recurring dream lately. In the dream, I wasn't a wealthy merchant, but Li Jinyan's wife. I was empress of the nation, yet unloved, and always found myself running to her palace for comfort. In the dream, she once saw me reading a poem tucked beneath her bookshelf. Mountains and seas can be leveled, but not the human heart. A woman's body bears no path to serve her country. I had read the weathered paper twice over and suddenly said, Your Majesty, if I may, I think you're far more capable than any man on that throne. If you were emperor, you'd be the best ruler this world has ever known. She had regarded me as a kindred spirit ever since. Despite Li Jinyan's pressure, she protected me for many years. I had once thought we would grow old together in that lonely palace, relying on each other. But in the end, I still died, ground down by Li Jinyan's constant torment. And eventually, she died too, murdered by Li Jinyan. A narrow-minded man, even with the throne in hand, could never tolerate a single grain of sand in his eye. 11. Word quickly spread through the capital that Li Jinyan was eliminating his own brothers and planned to marry me. The city buzzed with rumors. When Ji Xiaoya heard about it, jealousy consumed her. First, she sent members of the Ji family to my shops to stir up trouble, shouting insults and calling me a shameless seductress. Then she hired people to falsely accuse my business of selling defective goods. But Wang Jinkai handled it all with ease. When those tactics failed, she resorted to framing me in every way she could. Fortunately, in this life, I had already seen through all her schemes. I dodged each one with ease. Driven to desperation, she eventually tried to have me assassinated. But before her plan could succeed, word of it reached Li Jinyan. He and Ji Xiaoya had a furious argument. She accused him of being fickle and unfaithful, of loving every woman he met. He lashed back, calling her deceitful and venomous. In the middle of their quarrel, a scented letter slipped from Ji Xiaoya's sleeve and landed at Li Jinyan's feet. It was from the northern prince, a love letter, its words full of longing. After an investigation, Ji Xiaoya's affair was fully exposed. All the bullying she had inflicted on me during her years in the Ji family came to light as well. Enraged, Li Jinnian threw her into the dungeons. But my biological parents refused to believe the daughter they had raised could be so shameless. They wailed and sobbed, placing all the blame on me. It must be that country girl's doing. She seduced the emperor, and now the crown prince too. She's a curse. Arrest her. Even with the truth laid bare, they clung desperately to their delusions and continued to press me. They thought idle gossip and slander could break me. But it couldn't. If someone makes you unhappy, cut them off. If someone persecutes you, rise above them with everything you've got. Because when you're standing at the summit, enjoying the sunrise and sunset, they're still down at the foot of the mountain playing petty games from 10 years ago. And they can't touch you. The Ji family caused as much chaos as they could, but in the end, accomplished nothing. In fact, because they stirred up trouble at my cinnabar mine, the emperor demoted them. As for Ji Xiaoya, she was tortured in prison and eventually hanged herself in despair. After the new year, the emperor's health declined rapidly. Li Jinnian knew his opportunity had come. He raised a private army. His cavalry stormed the city, charging straight into the Golden Throne Hall. Just when he thought victory was his, my sworn brother arrived, leading tens of thousands of soldiers, and surrounded him completely. When he saw my brother riding a majestic warhorse, a silver spear aimed directly at his face, Li Jinnian turned deathly pale. How could this be? What couldn't it be? After years of entanglement, I knew Li Jinnian better than anyone. From the very first moment I saw him in the palace, I knew, if I didn't pull him down from power, I would never know peace. So I quietly gathered troops and trained a private force of generals. In my past life, my brother had loved studying military strategy and dreamed of becoming a general who would serve the country with honor. In this life, after I allied with the Empress Dowager, I had him secretly trained in warfare under her most trusted commanders. When Li Jinnian launched his rebellion, my brother led tens of thousands of soldiers and struck straight at the heart of the capital. Li Jinnian was arrested for treason. The emperor, furious and heartbroken, collapsed and died. The Empress Dowager issued a single command: the 6-year-old 9th prince would ascend the throne. And so began her reign behind the curtain, ruling from the shadows. 3 years later, the young emperor, uninterested in politics, left the palace to travel. At that moment, the Empress Dowager stepped into the light. She ascended the throne and became the first empress regnant in history. Though the old ministers opposed her, none dared speak out. My sworn brother became her most trusted commander, finally fulfilling his dream of becoming a great general. As for me, I traveled the world with my adoptive mother, journeying across rivers and mountains to see the most breathtaking sights this world has to offer. The end.